You're listening to Ideal Practice, episode number 48. And today I get to introduce you to Linzy Bonham. And oh my gosh, what a treat you are in for today. Linzy is a social worker turned money coach for therapists. And she has her own podcast. It's called Money Skills for Therapists. If you have not heard it, I really encourage you to check that out. And by the end of today's episode, you will understand why I'm saying that. This is going to be good, y'all. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Wendy Pitts-Reeves, and with over 2 decades of experience in the private practice world, I've built my 6-figure business while learning a lot of lessons the hard way. This is the first podcast that shows you how to apply the principles of energy, alignment, and strategy to build a practice that is profit-centered, but people-forward. This is the Ideal Practice Podcast. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Wendy, and I am so glad to have you here today. I am super excited because you get to meet somebody today who I am really impressed by. We've only had a couple of conversations, but I have been following her myself on a podcast that she has that's called the Money Skills for Therapists. It can't get any more accurate or right up my alley than that, can you? Knowing how much we talk about that here on this channel. So I want to introduce you to Linzy Bonham. Linzy, say hello.
Hi.
Hi, Linzy. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm very excited to be here. I've also enjoyed our pre-conversation, so I'm excited to record one.
There you go. Because we have so much in common in terms of the way we think about money and its impact on our profession. Why don't you start everybody off by just telling them a little bit about who you are, where you are,
sure,
and a little bit about your story.
So I am based in Guelph, Ontario. So I'm a Canadian. And I call myself now a therapist turned money coach. So I'm a social worker by training, started out in private practice probably about 8 years ago, and specialized in complex trauma dissociation, heavy work, really satisfying work, but definitely went into the deep end. And then I identified that there was this thing that I really enjoyed, which was figuring out the money side of private practice and spreadsheets and all those things that my colleagues hated.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So I started to step into experimenting with helping colleagues with money. And since then, it has evolved into my full-time thing. So now full-time, I run Money Nuts and Bolts. That's my business. And my main course is Money Skills for Therapists. And I just dedicate all of my time and my bandwidth to helping therapists learn how to do money, build systems, build a new relationship with money.
It just struck me when you said that you were working with complex trauma before. What good training that is for helping therapists with money.
Yes. There is a lot of overlap. Yes. I have to really restrain from using my trauma skills. Are you seeing a therapist? Because of course, financial trauma is real. Poverty is real trauma. Financial abuse. There's all sorts of beliefs about money that are actually from trauma, whether it's financial trauma or otherwise. So yes, these things can run really deep. Absolutely.
Isn't that true? I mean, we joke about it, but it really is true. And it's startling how that shows up in the way we run our practice, the way we run our practice, the way we talk to our clients. And there are so many messages loaded around shame and guilt and fear and feeling stupid and all the things that people have around money. I often say that money is a therapeutic issue and that if we don't learn how to deal with it, we are doing our clients a disservice, but we have to start with ourselves, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes, we do. Definitely what we bring into our relationship with money is going to end up in the clinical relationship.
That's super interesting to me. So you have shut down your clinical practice. This is what you're doing.
Yes, I have.
Yep. Yeah. I love that you have found this whole other side to things that is such a good fit for you. And there is really a tremendous need for it. I just really love it. And there aren't many therapists who say, I really got into the spreadsheets. It was so much fun. I wanted to help everybody else.
Yeah. So far, there aren't a
Sure.
lot. Yes. Yes. So far as, as far as I know, this is kind of like a niche that I'm occupying on my own at the moment. I expect at some point there will be more therapists who pop up who share their passion for like people and spreadsheets like I do. But definitely it's not a common combination of interests.
It's a great niche. You're defining it. Yeah. It's really great. Yeah. So let's play with that a little bit in terms of the, because I think I was telling you before we got on the call that I have listened to a lot of your podcasts myself. I really find it quite helpful, and I was listening to you interviewing one of your students, or actually coaching one of your students. And as I was listening to her talk, it made me think about how we trip ourselves up in terms of our practice so often in such subtle ways. Tell me, in your experience, because I started to say you've gone to the dark side. That's not really quite right. That's not fair. But that you deal with this sort of shadow side of our practice, right, of our work in a way. What do you see most often? What are some of the more common mistakes that you see people make, or mindset issues, the way that we think about money plays out for people?
Sure. Well, there are a great many, let me tell you. I think the first one that immediately popped into my mind, which is more of like a mindset piece, is the like, I'm not good enough. And of course, that's deep, deep stuff. The I'm not good enough. Yep. But the way that shows up in the way that we like set our fees, the way that we try to enforce our policies, or that we can't enforce our policies, like what we think, the value that we think that we're giving to our clients. And just like in so many ways that, especially when it comes to having to make that ask, right, of like a fee, holding a boundary, it makes it so difficult to hold. Even to the boundaries that you have on paper are very difficult to hold to when you have the like, I'm not good enough, I'm a fraud. Like I think a lot of therapists have, imposter syndrome. We think that we're about to be like 2 steps away from being found out for not knowing anything, which generally I think smart, talented people feel that way. I think generally speaking, people who maybe should feel imposter syndrome don't. But yeah, so that is definitely one that I see more on the fee side of things. Because I kind of work with the spectrum of money stuff. The like, I'm not good enough, imposter syndrome is huge. So that's one in that area. On the other side, what I see with like the financial management piece, which is like, the piece that is my little niche that I love teaching those skills, is people thinking, I'm not good at math. I've never been good at math. Like my grade 4 math teacher told me that I should like do something else. And those stories about who you are in relation to math or money. I'm not a money person. I've never been good with money.
I don't do numbers.
Those identity stories. Yeah. All of those are so strong. And those really interfere with your ability to manage money and like take control of your money and understand it. Because generally speaking, when those stories come up, they just like shut us down and we feel foggy. And then we do kind of feel stupid because our brain has stopped working because now we're flooded.
Absolutely. And do you find that people like avoid looking at their numbers?
Avoid 100%.
Yep.
Yes. Yep. That is the natural response, is just to, like close your laptop, walk away. I think a lot too about overachievement, Wendy, because I think, you call in your people, even if sometimes you don't use those words. So I get a lot of overachievers in money skills for therapists. And it is so much more comfortable to stay in the parts of your practice that you're good at. Do another client session, change somebody's life, network with a colleague, like answer some emails. Like there's so many things that are more comfortable to do, because for overachievers or perfectionists, it's much more comfortable for us to be doing the things we're good at than to sit in something that isn't working or that we don't know how to do. That can be very uncomfortable space for overachievers.
True. So so we have this, and you're right. I see this as well. So first of all, I feel a little guilty about the money that I'm charging, because secretly I'm not really sure I'm worth it. Bottom line. Yep. And that whole money stuff, that's not really my thing. That's not what I'm into this for. I'm into this because I want to help people. And you know what? I feel comfortable. I'm good here. Like, even though I don't think I'm good enough, I'm comfortable here. And what I hear you saying is that the tendency then is to avoid taking a look at that, because we have this story. I can't do it. I'm not good at it. I don't know how. That's not my thing. So I avoid it and avoid it and avoid it. And then what happens if I don't ever look at it? What kind of...
Well, then it can actually become a problem. So what I've seen with money is like, there's some things in your life that if you avoid them, they're not as bad as you think. right?
Yep.
And sometimes I see people like that come into money skills for therapists where they're like, I don't want to look at my numbers. And then they do look at their numbers, and then we look at them together and it's like, these are good numbers. You're actually okay. And sometimes that is the case. But then there's the other scenario, which is the worst scenario, where you're not looking because you're scared, you don't know how to save for taxes. So you're just kind of like hoping it works out. And then tax time comes and you owe $15,000 that you don't have, right? Or you've crossed a tax bracket. So what you saved last year would have been good enough, but this year you now owe more. And so there's a bunch of extra money you owe, even though you did save. And so that avoidance really can lead to financial problems. Not filing your taxes for a lot of years can actually get you in a lot of trouble, right? So there are actually ways that avoiding your finances can actually make them worse than.
I just talked to someone the other day, a therapist, who realized she had outsourced all of her billing work to a billing company that the group practice she was in used, and she never paid attention to it because they handle that. She doesn't do numbers. It's not my thing. And found out, eventually, I've forgotten what triggered it, but something triggered it where she had to go in and look at it, and found out that she had something like $12,000 worth of claims that they had never filed. Much of which she probably won't be able to get back because of timely filing and all that. So, so it really can cost you real money
for sure.
Your avoidance. Interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And then what happens with that, Wendy, is like then when we have experiences like that, it just deepens that belief that like money is terrible, right? Because then, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. We've avoided it. Now there is actually a problem. Now when we do have to deal with it, we're having to deal with this huge problem. And you've just reinforced the story.
Yep. See, I told you I was no good at this. Look what an idiot I am.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Golly, I can relate.
Yeah. Even when I try, this is what happens, and there's this kind of like hopelessness there that can develop that, really the problems are the result of the behavior, but it just feeds into itself.
So I'm hoping that as people are listening to this, the one thing I want people to know is that this is common.
Oh,
this really is common. And the fact that if you are hearing this and you're going, oh my gosh, how did they know this was me? Well, we know it's you because half the time it's been us as well. Part of the reason, the reason you got into talking about this side of things is because you have a natural gift for this. That's not why I got into talking about it. I got into talking about it because I was that person, and I lost something like $13,000 the first couple of years I was in practice with unfiled claims because I didn't know what I was doing, and I hated dealing with it, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been in practice for a long time, like almost 30 years at this point. So I've come a very, very long way, and a lot of things that used to eat me alive, I don't think twice about anymore.
Yeah.
But I learned the hard way by losing a lot of money, right? Right. Gee whiz.
There can be a real cost to it.
And the kind of people who are drawn to this kind of work aren't people who are motivated by money. But I love one of the things that you're kind of, that's sort of a subtext through this is that when you tell yourself you don't do numbers, that's just a story.
Yes.
Absolutely. If your clients come to you and say, well, I don't do relationships. Oh, well, I'm a terrible parent. Or, well, I'm never going to be successful in my career. You wouldn't let them get away with that.
Yeah,
right?
True. You would call them out. Yep.
You call them out on it. So you and I think one of the things I want to do is call people out and go, that's just a story. So let's rewrite that story.
Absolutely.
So there's sort of this lack-minded kind of thinking that's really common. I'm not good at this. I can't do it. And I don't really want to deal with it anyway, which becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy for sure.
Yes.
And I know that one of the things that you do is sort of help people turn that around, really get learn how to change that story.
Yes.
But you told me that you have noticed a different pattern that's showing up, like a whole nother way that you're learning.
Yes.
That I think might surprise people a little bit. Tell me about that.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, even when I built Money Skills for Therapists, Wendy, which the basis of the course I built in 2018, and then I've added it to it since, but kind of my original thinking that went into it, the thing that I really saw, the behavior that resulted from this avoidance is that people would overspend. Right. Because if you don't know how much you're making, and then there's this cool clinical training that comes along, and you want to get some nice children's therapists, like play therapists.
Right.
I feel for them because there's always cool stuff to buy. Right. Like there's always some cool toy, puppet set, or art therapists. So it's like when you're not looking and when you're avoiding, the normal thing, the common thing, I should say, that I used to see a lot was that overspending. But just in recent years, and probably just because I'm working with more and more therapists, I've started to see this whole other behavior that I think gets doesn't get identified as the issue that it is, which is basically hoarding, not spending, having a bank account that has like a significant balance in it, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, that the therapist feels totally like not entitled to and has no idea what to do with. This total like paralysis around this money. And I'm seeing this more and more. So it's like, even though there's money there, still feeling like they can't pay themselves well, still worried they don't have enough for taxes. Like there's just this complete, almost like separation from that money, and they just don't know what to do with it.
So it's like disembodied. Like it's not, they don't own it. They don't claim it.
Yes.
They don't, right. Interesting.
Totally. Yes. And I love what you just said there. Like they don't claim it. Because like what I've started to realize as I've worked with folks around this is like, energetically, even though I think money has so much potential and like money is a source of kind of like power and flow, this money is totally stagnant for them. It has no energy. It has no potential. It's not bringing joy into their life. They don't feel accomplished. It's not giving them a sense of security, like all the things that money can do for us when there's this kind of hoarding. And I'm using that as a strong term. When there's this building up of money, does not bring any of that goodness into their life.
It's interesting. I'm going to guess that people who fall into this category would not use the word hoarding. They will say, "I'm just being safe, right? I'm just being safe. I'm just being smart. I'm just being sensible." And I was going to ask you, like, well, so why is this a problem? What's wrong with having lots of money on hand?
Yes,
but you said they don't own it. They're not enjoying it. It's not serving them.
No, and sometimes those folks are experiencing real scarcity at home because part of why that money's built up is they're not paying themselves well. Right. So it's like, even though they are basically financially successful, they've built a practice that could be paying them well. They could be doing that yoga class that they want to do, or they could be going on vacation. They don't feel entitled to that at all. Right. So it's like they are living as though they're making very little. Right. That money is not in any way improving their life. And it's just become kind of this dead energy that in some ways actually becomes more of a burden because they're scared of doing it wrong. Right. And scared of spending it on the wrong things, spending it, and then they did need it for taxes, and now they've made a mistake. Like there's a lot of, I think, perfectionism that comes into this kind of relationship with money. Well,
dead energy is really something.
Yeah.
Dead energy. I mean, that sort of hit me.
Yeah.
And what's striking me is how this also fits with where you started, which is this story that I'm not good enough. I'm an imposter.
Yes.
I'm helping people, but it's just a fluke.
Yes, totally.
Right?
Yes.
So if I'm a fluke and I'm not really doing any good, and if people get better, it's just an accident. It's not because of my training and years of experience.
Yes.
Then this money is also an accident, and I don't really have a right to it, and I can't trust that it's going to be there.
Yes.
Because it's all just one giant fluke.
And that word, I think, is key, which is trust.
Yeah.
You don't trust that the world is safe.
Yeah.
Right. There's like, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen and I'm going to need this money. I can't use it now because what if something happens? What that something isn't clear. Right. But also I think not trusting yourself to make good choices with this money and to be able to, use it well. I think there's a real lack of trust that comes with this, which is where I think the paralysis comes in, is it's kind of like a fear response.
Yeah. Yeah. Living in lack. In lack.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're literally living in lack. Because you're not actually paying yourself well.
Right. So is that something that you're seeing a lot, that people have plenty of money in the bank, but they're not drawing a salary? They're still sort of struggling personally? Yeah.
I'm going to say this is maybe like in Money Skills for Therapists, this is maybe like 1 in 5, 1 in 4, something like that. Where people, where folks come in. And I think often with these folks is they've done their mindset work. Right. So they're like charging a good fee. Like so often mindset work is around your fee. Yes. Right. So they've managed to charge a good fee. Maybe they're a New York City therapist. So it's like, they're charging like $300 a session or whatever. And in some ways it looks like everything is great, but they're in no way embodying their success or enjoying their success. It like doesn't even belong to them. And again, going back to the not good enough can be part of this. Like if you don't feel good enough and it feels like a fluke, then it's really hard to trust that. But it's, this real kind of like self-denial is happening. And if you're partnered, then you might be in a household where your partner earns enough that the fact that you're paying yourself very little kind of like you can still squeak by.
Right.
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 But yeah, I really, that other piece too that we mentioned a minute ago, I think that like that something bad is going to happen, I think is often a big part of this. And obviously there's no one explanation for somebody doing this, but just that like feeling like the money's going to go away. And with that logic, there's never enough money.
Right.
You always need more because you never know what bad thing is going to happen next.
It's interesting as you're talking, I'm thinking I've coached people all around the country and, you know, the standard of living is quite different in certain parts of the country. I live in East Tennessee. It is very common where I live, and we have an insurance-based system here for a standard reimbursement rate for a master's level clinician is somewhere between $60 and $90 a session.
Right.
It's very common.
Yes.
I think the self-pay rates where I live in my part of the country are around 125 to 150, seems to be about normal at this point.
Yeah.
But I'm hearing rates 200, 250 and up in other parts of the country.
Yeah.
From people who feel broke.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's all relative. You know, what gas costs in some of those places is very different from what it costs here too. So it's all relative. So how do you know? So if somebody's listening to this and they're arguing, you know what it is. I always say, you're arguing with me in your head. I can see it in your face. I know you're arguing with me in your head. So somebody's listening to this and they're going, I am not a freaking money hoarder. I don't know what you're talking about. I need to keep that. How do you know if this is a problem and you should maybe pay attention to it? Because I really want to, I mean, you're saying if this is you, you're not happy. You're working your tail off and you're doing all this good work and you are not happy.
Yes. And I think that's the first thing to notice, right? Is like, are you actually feeling the results of your work? Are you turning, like money and, one way to look at it is it's kind of like this, you're taking energy and kind of putting it into form for a minute, but it's full of potential, right? And you can turn money into so many things, right? Like more things than we can possibly name. And so one question I have is like, are you actually feeling that return? Is there potential that's being realized from your money? Is it making your life better? Like, are you able to look at your life and say like, I work hard, I did this work to raise my fee, or I've established myself in my niche and my life is better in all of these ways because of the money that I earn, right? If there's a flow of energy, then you know that money's actually working for you and you have presence with it. It's serving you, right? Like, because that's also what we need to keep doing the work that we do, is you need to be filled back up. Like I've always said that therapists need to take way better care of ourselves than many other professions.
100%.
Because you are your service, right? Like you are the beating heart of your business and like you need to be more than okay. You need to be well. And it's even better when we're like feeling vibrant and like we're actually practicing what we preach and we're talking about something that we're not kind of like talking out one side of our mouth. And so
walk your talk.
Yes.
Right. So
and
if you're
when you're walking your talk,
right?
You know what that feels like in your body when you've just come home from some great weekend away with friends and you feel energized and filled up and connected and you go into session feeling kind of like refreshed and excited because you're living a life that you're actually enjoying, like the life that your clients think that you're leading.
Right.
You know what that feels like.
Living the life your clients think that you're living.
Yes. There can be a big disparity between the life our clients think we're leading and the life we're actually leading. So that's one thing I would have people notice. But the other thing that's, maybe a little bit more kind of practical is just like, does your money actually have a job? Like in the words of YNAB, it's like every dollar needs a job. Even like savings that have no purpose can start to develop this stagnancy around them. Because what happens is, especially if we have kind of these fears of bad things happening or there's never enough, what happens is you have $10,000 in savings and that feels okay. But then you get up to 12 and then you're like, well, I don't want to go back down to 10. Now 12 is my floor, right? Like there's many ways that this kind of like stagnant energy can come into our savings, and savings are obviously great. And obviously I teach therapists to save money, but it's like saving money for what? What is the potential of that money? Is that an emergency fund? And if it is, do you actually know what an emergency is? And you're going to let yourself access it.
Right. How do you define
Because I've seen many an emergency fund not be accessed when there really is an emergency happening, right? Or is that your like Disney fund, that you're going to take your kids to Disney when they turn 8? That money has like so much excitement and potential around it. And that is a lot more vibrant and alive than kind of a savings account that has no purpose, that then just becomes kind of for its own purpose.
I love that Dave Ramsey always says, give every dollar a name, right?
Yes.
So it's the same idea.
Same thing. Same thing. It's like we need to have intention around our money. Otherwise, we can have this stagnancy build up.
Is it making your life better? So and these are two different sides, right? This is sort of the energy side of it, and then there's the strategy side of it. So the energy side is, if you're doing all this work and you're not nothing good is really happening. Your house isn't in better shape. You're not taking the vacation you've always wanted. You're still sending your child to a school that when there's really this other one you really want to go to, whatever that looks like for you, for me, it's always travel. But if you're not letting yourself do that, is your money really working for you? But the other thing, what I'm hearing you say is, the way I think about it is like running. I have all these like things that are coming together in my head. Run the tape all the way out. So just putting money in savings isn't enough. Putting money in savings for what and why? Yeah. And give it a measurement. Put some structure around it. Yeah. Some definition, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same with goal setting, right? Like I have a second level program called Money Boss, which is my small group mastermind. And I had them set goals recently. And then I went back to many of them and said, okay, we got to drill down. How do we actually know when you've reached this goal? Sure, you're going to hire 2 clinicians, but what about them? How do we know when they're the right clinicians? How do we know when you've actually achieved this? Because when we don't have specificity, and it doesn't need to be like a SMART goal, but when we don't have specificity to know like, this is done, I've arrived, overachievers just tend to just keep going. We never stop and celebrate or recognize what we've done or take a breath. We just move on to the next goal. And so I think that specificity also lets you see okay, I've saved $10,000 for Disney. Now I'm booking that trip and we're going to go to the place that we really want to go. And we're going to make sure my kid gets to go to the Aladdin show. And it becomes really real and actually makes your life better. It becomes meaningful dollars.
It's fun money.
It's fun money and actual fun. Therapists need to have about 10 times more fun than we do.
Well, this is how we take dead energy and wake it back up, bring it back to life. Right?
Exactly.
I had a client one time in my counseling practice. She was a CPA, and she was a single mom of 2 boys who were about 7 and 9 at the time, and she wanted to take them to Disney. It's funny you would use that example. Yeah. And I love this. It's one of the best things I've ever seen. She put a glass jar in the kitchen and would have no, it wasn't a glass jar. It was an envelope. She used an envelope. And she would put cash in that envelope. She wrote Disney, it's our Disney fund on the front of it, right? And when the kids wanted to go to McDonald's or wanted her to take them to a movie, she would say, we can do that. That's fine. And she would pull out the cash for what that would cost. And she would say, or we could put it in the Disney envelope. Yeah. Which do you want to do?
Yes.
And let them make that choice. And they spent a whole year, I think maybe it was 2 years, saving up for that. But her kids often chose to put the cash in the Disney envelope.
Yes.
And it didn't feel like deprivation. It felt like joy because look at all this money we're taking to Disney, right?
Totally. And I bet that trip was also more meaningful for them because they were part of the process of kind of earning it in a way. Not their dollars, but they were making decisions that made this a priority in their life.
And we don't let ourselves do that. We don't let ourselves have the fun, the joy of anticipation. It's funny. So I'm thinking about the whole, if your approach to life is sort of fear-based, you know, I've got to, and there's lots of reasons why we are this way, right? Sure. I'm thinking if you really wanted to, and I don't know if you do, I imagine you do this in your course, but somewhere along the way, it's worth it to look at what your family history was around money, what the messages were that you gained around money. This is a really important work. I really, really, really encourage people to do this. To explore, where does this come from? Why am I so fearful about this? But I'm wondering, let's say that one of the big things is there's never enough because there's this always fear of a lurking disaster.
Yeah. Yes.
What would you recommend that people, what's the measuring stick? What is the rule of thumb? I've always heard, for as long as I can remember, I've heard have 6 months worth of expenses set in a savings account. I'm like, that's a freaking lot of money.
It's a lot.
I've never been able to do that. Right.
No.
So how do you do that? And is that actually the best way to do it?
Yeah. And I mean, that, on one hand, I'm like, that's kind of an American number. Being Canadian, and this is the truth of it, right? Like depending where you live and depending what kinds of services are available to you, that's going to change the number that it needs to be. But I don't think I know anybody who has 6 months either. I certainly don't have 6 months worth of money, partially because I choose to prioritize other things. I'm choosing to build a backyard rental in my property instead, which, as we chatted about a little bit before, like recording, is an excessive amount of money because always things go sideways and it's costing us, just $70,000 or $80,000 more than we planned. So but that's a choice that I'm making. Because I have money in investments instead. So you also get to choose how you do things. And I want to like emphasize that. I think sometimes folks who've had a lot of influence in the space, who've done a lot of good, people like Dave Ramsey, who kind of like, sets a lot of the norms. That's also just one way to do things.
Right. Which is why I want to get your input, because there's lots of ways to think about this.
I do definitely think that having like an emergency fund is a good thing. I might not call it an emergency fund. I like the term buffer personally. I teach my students to like save buffers in your business. My little phrase is buffers everywhere. Let's have a little bit of buffer in your OPEX, so that if for some reason you don't work for a couple of weeks, your rent is still there to get paid. Like it doesn't start impacting your home. Having a bit of a salary buffer that you can use as paid time off. I teach like a paid time off system where just by the way you pay yourself, there's always money to pay your paycheck regardless. Those are buffers and it's building in padding. And what I like about that instead of like an emergency fund is like we chatted about a little earlier, often we don't identify when it's actually an emergency. Yeah. Especially therapist-y types where I think we're used to kind of like pushing through and like, just making our lives a little more difficult than we need to be. But certainly having like 2 months worth of basic living expenses set aside is a wise thing to have, right? That means that if you get a bad case of COVID and you can't work for 3 weeks, your family's still okay. You're not having to like push yourself through and see clients when you really shouldn't be. Like having that kind of padding either in your business or at home, and I like a little bit of both, just gives you the ability to weather the ups and downs of life without them kind of like, throwing you around. Because life goes up and down, like expect the unexpected, right? So I would say 2 months, like 2 months in your business is what I, teach my Money Boss students to work towards. But also at home, 2 months. But also we have to remember that if we do go through some kind of financial loss, if you lose your job, you're probably not going to eat out at a fancy restaurant every week. You're also going to be like cutting some of those like pure kind of just enjoyment expenses for a little bit. So really those 2 months are like, what are your base expenses you have to pay? What is groceries? Because if that happens, you're going to be going through a little regrouping time where you're going to be a little thriftier in that time.
Although it just occurred to me, as you said that, if you're in private practice, you don't need to worry about losing your job.
I know.
You do need
I was
to worry,
thinking that too.
Right. Yeah.
Again, the beauty of having your own business, if you want security, like you said. And I think for us, it's more has to do with some sort of like health issue. Yep. And like, I think about my own business. We have an employee now. And like one of the things that we have is like paid leave, caregiver leave, because our employee has a partner who is terminally ill and will die at some point. Right. And so it's also like just thinking about that, like what are the things that life throws at us that are like terrible and awful. And it is a gift to our future self to let us just be present with your mom as she gets a diagnosis and, or like be present with your sister who breaks her legs and can't take care of her kids, but you can actually step in and help her take care of her kids. Like the gift of time and presence, I think is irreplaceable, and money can give you that if you start to build up these buffers.
Yeah. So I think if you're one of those folks who tends to sort of sock it away in an unconscious way, like it's just, you can barely, it's like all the rest of us, you can barely stand to think about it, barely look at it. You just keep putting it away. What would you, I think I know the answer to this question. I was going to say, where would you encourage people to start to shift that? How to get the flow going again? How to wake up the dead energy and get things flowing? Yes,
totally. Yeah. So the thing that I tell people to do, because I've had this conversation many times recently, is do start with your obligations. Because often when folks have a bunch of money saved, some of that will be tax money. So if you've got like, I don't know, like $15,000 in your bank account, take a pause, do your numbers for the year, figure out how much have I earned this year, and then what is my tax rate, which you can find online. Just search tax rate and your state or province, and put aside that percentage so your taxes are covered, right? Cover your obligations. And then after that, what I encourage people to do is think about what is the energy that you want this money to bring into your life? And that can be many things. It can be multiple things, right? And so let's say after I do that math, I have $8,000 left over. Now you have this beautiful opportunity where you have this basket of money that's all accumulated in one place. And you get to think about what would make my life better. What is that for you? Yesterday, one of my Money Boss students, as we talked through a similar conversation, she was hoarding her profit fund. We talked about a few things. She was like, maybe stealing my business. Maybe I make it a buffer. Maybe this. We landed on a kitchen counter. She wants a new kitchen counter.
Nice.
She works hard. She's building a group. She's tired. She's tired of her shitty counter. So she's going to buy a nice new kitchen counter. And that is going to be her like success. This is like profit from her business. She's taking a risk. She's done hard things. Here's a beautiful $2,000 kitchen counter to replace her old shabby one.
And was it hard for her to do that? Like, was it hard to get to the point where she could give herself permission to do that?
Yeah, I coached her.
Yeah.
We walked through it together.
Yeah.
But part of it was just starting to weigh out like, okay, you could leave the money in your business and start a buffer. Cause we've just been talking in Money Boss about building buffers, and you could use all your money for that. How's that going to feel in your body if you do that? Are you going to feel good? Like I do the somatic check, right? Cause usually the body doesn't lie, right? And when she did that, she was like, yeah, it'd be like fine. But then when we started exploring what she actually wants, a kitchen counter was like, yes, that would be so nice, right? So it's like, follow the energy. Like your body knows what's actually going to hit the spot for you. And when we try to override our body with our brain and like, well, the responsible thing to do is blah, 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 we extinguish our joy.
This is huge. Okay, this is really important because depending upon your story or your identity, how you tend to, the way you describe yourself. Oh, I'm a flake, I'm a hippie chick from the 60s, which is who I am. You, like you don't take any of this stuff seriously. Then you may tell yourself a story that I don't handle money well, and it flows through your fingers. But on the other hand, if you're like, maybe let's take that same scenario. I'm somebody who doesn't handle money well, but but I also feel stupid about that all the time. And I had parents who always said, why are you wasting so much money? So I flipped to the other side.
Yeah.
I hold on it to an extreme. Now I actually have the money because I've done what you're teaching. I've figured out the obligations.
Yes.
Everything really is covered on paper. I can see it. It's right here in front of me. There's no reason in the world why I can't take some of this money and go play.
Yes.
And all of my old guilt and shame pops back up. Is this being irresponsible? Am I being silly? Is this me going back? Whatever. I can just see how even when and I think this is important because I think this is where people will trip up. If you do it all, if you do your work, look at the numbers, make yourself face it. I do think like a lot of times actually the numbers are better than you think they are, honestly.
Yes.
I find that
Truly.
a lot too.
Yep, I agree.
But even if they're not, at least you know where you stand and you're going to feel better one way or the other. But let's say you've done your homework, you've done the work, life is good, your rates are healthy, you're running your practice in a really smart way, and you've got some money you can do something with. What I think is going to come up is people are going the whole, I don't deserve it. I'm being silly. I'm being wasteful. This is not sensible. So I love what you're saying about check in with your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does it feel like? So if I do this sensible, reasonable, practical thing, does that feel good? Does it feel exciting? Does it feel like I'm solid? I feel grounded. I feel, then that's great. Yeah.
And it might be that I know for some folks that I've worked with, like seeing themselves put money into the retirement fund, they're like, yes, I am taking care of my future self. Finally, that's like an embodied, like I'm doing it, or I'm saving for my kids' education. That can be a yes from the body. Absolutely. But you got to check with your own body.
Because on the other hand, I do all the sensible, reasonable, practical things, and everything in me feels resentful, tired, discouraged. Yeah. Then that's probably a sign that's not what you need to do.
I would say so. Yes. And I mean, something I've been thinking about a lot in the maybe last like year of my life is just how life is short and we don't know what's in store for us. Nobody. And I asked myself that too, of like, if for some reason my life is going to be shorter than I think it is, and this is morbid, but it's true. If for some reason, like if this is my last year, do I want to spend it feeling resentful and restrained and responsible, but like I'm going to get to enjoy my life when I'm 65 and I retire.
Yep.
No, absolutely not.
Right.
Like I'm very much like, I've always been like a like balance in the middle person. And it's like, you need to take care of both parts of you. You need to take care of your future self, because we don't want to deny her either. We don't want you to get to retirement and be like, I have $5. Oh dear.
Right.
And that can happen. But at the same time, don't deny your present self. Like, this is your life now. And I think I've especially noticed it because I have a child who's a toddler, and like these years already feel like they're going fast. And I'm just so aware of how precious it is. Like, life is now. It's not later. You got to live.
Have you heard of a book called 4,000 Weeks?
I had a student, we were having a discussion about overachievement, and she told me about it.
Yeah, I'm just like in the last few pages of it. I can't remember the author's name. It's Oliver something with a B, Berkman or something like that. I'll look it up, put it in the show notes. But that's basically the point of that whole book. It's that whole thing about how do you certainly be an adult, take care of things you need to take care of. But don't let that run the show, because if our whole focus is on tomorrow, we're missing today completely. As we are recording this, I don't know when this is going to air yet, but as soon as we are recording this, I'm in the middle of preparing to take a month-long camping trip. And
that's great.
And I have done I argue with people all the time about taking time off. It really gets me when people tell me they're taking a vacation, and when I ask it, these are therapists. So great. Where are you going? How long are you going to be gone? And they're talking, what they describe to me as a long weekend. I'm taking Friday and Monday off. That's not a vacation, honey. That's just a weekend, right?
I am familiar with that version of a week off.
Oh, my Lord.
I also see that. Yes, I know.
And I just talked to someone, a good friend of mine recently, who is right as we speak on her very first ever 2-week vacation. 2 weeks. Yes. I do 3, 4, 5 if I can help it.
That's great.
Because it takes at least a week away from everything to stop thinking about work all the time.
Yes.
It takes longer than that to actually go anywhere that has any substance to it. And I like to go, right?
Yes.
But I am going to work a little bit along the way on purpose. We are experimenting purposely to see if we can do a little bit of work, a little bit of travel, a little bit of work, a little bit, on purpose. And I'm experimenting with what feels good.
Yeah.
How much money do I really want to keep earning along the way? How much is it okay? It doesn't really matter. When does travel for travel's sake feel fine? And when do I feel like working? I don't know. I'm checking in with that as I go along.
Absolutely. And what I hear there, Wendy, and this is one of my favorite words in this work, is curiosity.
Yes.
Just being curious.
Yes.
Who knows? It might feel really good to do a day of client sessions after you've, been traveling for a week or two.
Yeah.
Or it might feel bad.
Right.
We're going to find out.
Well, the reason I mentioned that is because I think you're making a really good point that when you are be sensible about your money, but let's see if we can sort of summarize what we're saying here.
Yes.
At the bare, pay attention to the story that you tell yourself about money. And I talk about self-worth all the time on this podcast, and the importance of having healthy rates and having conversations with your clients about your rates. I really do believe that we need to learn how to talk about money in our practice, because I think that is every bit as important as any other clinical skill that we've got. So I preach that all the time. But sort of following where you're going with all this is that regardless of where you are on the spectrum, whether you feel like you don't have enough or you feel like you've got plenty, but you still don't think you have enough, wherever it is, sit down and look at your numbers.
Yes.
Realize that you can, that this is a skill you can learn just like anything else. Don't let the numbers define you, and don't let avoidance of them get you into trouble. My bookkeeper is, she's pretty woo. She's not a typical bookkeeper at all. And she said to me one time something that having an intention about your money is great, but that's not the same as attention to your money. And she said, you can't treat your money like a bad boyfriend that you stick up on the shelf and take down just every now and then. Like you gotta pay attention to it.
Totally.
So pay attention to your numbers. Give yourself permission to learn how to handle this. And your courses, I think we will certainly, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. We want to link those in the show notes for sure. Learn the skills and give every dollar a job. And if you do the things that you teach them to do and you got extra money, give yourself permission to live and go do that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I have an account I use just for travel, and I take a certain amount of every dollar I make and I stick it in that account. That is my play money.
Yeah.
And it feels really good because I know I've taken care of everything else.
Absolutely.
I can do it guilt free.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And that's a great example of,
yeah,
it's like, it's very personal what that's going to be for each of us. Like there was a point in my life when travel was everything. Now I have a toddler. Traveling with a toddler is terrible. So I'm not going to be traveling for a while. But now it's more like time with him, like creating like memories closer to home. Those are the things that really matter right now. And for everybody, they're going to have their own individual thing that is like, yes, seeing money go to this, creating more of this in my life. This is what actually feels meaningful and impactful for me.
Mm-hmm. This is why you work. This is why you run a business.
Yes.
Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. This is really good, Linzy. I really appreciate this. So tell me, as we sort of danced around this whole topic, and there's so many different aspects to the topic. Is there anything we haven't said, anything I haven't covered, anything that you can think of that you might like to add to make this complete?
I think I just want to almost turn up the volume and amplify the piece that you said that money skills are learnable. I think it's still so easy for us to fall into this idea of like, but I'm smart in this way, so I can't be smart in that way. And one of the things that's wonderful about finances is it is basic arithmetic. We're talking about addition, subtraction, maybe a little bit of dividing and multiplying, but it's like, it is math that your brain can absolutely do. And so once we start to pull apart these stories, interrogate them, take some space so our brains can be online, it is amazing how quickly and how much of a handle therapists can get on money, and then how good it feels. Like I just did a call this morning. Folks get a half-hour consultation with me as part of the course. And so I did a call with someone, and she was working her spreadsheet, and she was like, look at me go. Like, don't underestimate me. And like, 4 months ago when we started working together, she was terrified, but she's built the skill, and it feels so good to build the skills. And so just reiterating that like these things are absolutely learnable. You are very smart. If you're a therapist, I know that. And you can just add this to your list of skills.
So good. You have a freaking graduate degree, most of you.
Yes.
And if you don't, if you are a certified coach or you're a trained energy healer, you have gone through high levels of training and work to get to where you are. You're not dumb. You're not stupid.
You know how to learn.
You know how to learn.
Yeah.
You know how to learn. That's great. That's really, really, really good. And I would also say that when you give yourself permission to learn this, you will be better at what you do because your clients have the same issues around money. A lot of them do.
Absolutely.
And you're going to be better at what you do. Yeah. So good. This is great. So Linzy, for people who are like, oh my gosh, I need to talk to this woman. What is this course? Please tell me, what is the magic answer I've been looking for? How do they find you and learn more about what you do?
So the course is Money Skills for Therapists. And if you're listening and you're like, no, I really need to learn more about the course, I need an opportunity to work with you now, you being me. The way to do that is I have a masterclass, which is called the 4-Step Framework to Getting Your Business Finances Totally in Order. It's a mouthful. Therapists don't know how to be concise, and I'm no exception. But that is a masterclass that walks you through the 3 common mistakes that therapists make. It walks you through my 4-step framework that is built into Money Skills for Therapists. And then I actually introduce Money Skills for Therapists, and you have the chance to join. So if you are feeling excited and energized, that is your chance to get 6 months of support from me to turn around all the stuff we've been talking about.
And demystify the whole thing around money. Just like demystify it. So it's like, got it. And they can find all that at your website, I think. Learn about that at your website.
Yeah, moneynutsandbolts.com is my business is Money Nuts and Bolts. And then also, as you mentioned, Wendy, I have the Money Skills for Therapists podcast. If they want more podcasts, that's where they can find me.
I don't think you can listen to too many. I think it's very, very helpful. I really have been listening to a lot of yours, and I find it super, super informative. And I find that because we all think that we're the idiots in the world, it's so helpful to hear other people and kind of go, oh, maybe I'm not so bad. It's okay. Yeah.
It is a very, very common shared experience. It's just nobody's talking about it. So we all think we're the only one.
Just like our clients do.
Yep, absolutely.
See, this is the thing that I always come back to is like, we have all this shame around these issues, and we don't want to tell anybody. We think we can't be helped. We think we're a special case. We think we're the only ones that can't do it, which is exactly what our clients feel, whatever the problem is that they come to us. And if we believe that they can be helped, then we owe it to them and to ourselves to walk that same talk and do the same work. Yeah. Yeah.
True.
I can start preaching. All right. Thank you, Linzy. This is really good. I'm so glad you're here today. This has been delightful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
And with that, we will start to bring this to a close. Y'all, did you hear what Linzy said? I hope you were listening. I hope you take this to heart. Yes, it's important to run your business, know your numbers, make sound financial decisions that enable you to develop a foundation of financial security and freedom. The freedom to know that no matter what's coming down the path, you are good, you are solid, you can take care of your family, you can take care of yourself. But it's also important that you live well now. That's what it's all about, y'all. That's what it's all about. I hope you take this to heart. Have a great week, everyone. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me what your number one takeaway from this was. And of course, as always, if you're enjoying this show, please give us a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That helps us get this in front of more people who need to hear it too. Have a beautiful week. I love you all, and I will see you next time here on the Ideal Practice